Yeah, good. Yeah, good.
All right. Ready, Sean? You present first, or? All right, hello everybody. If you've never been here before, welcome to Sector67. We do these monthly meetings. Always the first Tuesday of the month, people share project presentations or updates or whatnot. Despite me emailing out that there were 0 presentations tonight, Ben and I have come out of the woodwork. We'll give you a small bit of entertainment, anyways. Yeah, so we'll give a couple talks, and then we can go around and say who we are, or what you're interested in, or whatever else, and then I give a tour afterwards if anybody's interested in seeing what's at the shop. And then we'll go from there. So let's see. I don't know, Zoom people, is my audio sucky, or are we doing all right? Assuming that all right, otherwise there'll be lots of protests. So let's do this. Share the screen. Cool. You wanna go first? Sure.
Howdy everyone, I'm Ben Conrad, and this is a project I did last winter really. So the basic context, my parents built a new house, and my dad had a pretty significant stroke 2 years ago. So they built a new house, and it's a little farther away from the driveway than is convenient in winter. So the question was, okay, how can my mom bring 2 garbage bins up to the up to the road when it's when it's a little full of snow, full of ice, all that. And this is what I spent a little bit of time trying to think of. First, I looked to see if you could buy any of these, because I would rather buy something than have to build it myself, depending on the price, of course. But they basically did 2 things. They either required you to lift the entire bin, the full bin, up onto something, up onto a lip or something that was on the back of the vehicle or some sort, or it kept the bin. It was more like treating the bin as a trailer, so the cart would still be in contact with the ground. And then if you think about, okay, I'm going to back up, I'm going to turn, I'm going to go over, snowy thing, like that just ends up in garbage being spilled, as far as I could imagine that. So I thought it possible to just, be like a garbage truck and just kind of, have something that attaches to the 2-inch receiver in the truck, and then lifts up the bins off the floor. But how to do that? Cheaply, without a lot of custom parts. Something that was lightweight that allowed my mom to lift it, insert it in the receiver, and take it out. Actuate it herself. I didn't really want a lot of complexity. So this is what I ended up coming up with. I've got other pictures that are more in process, but this is where we're trying to go. Okay. There are 2 bins: recycling and trash. It goes into the receiver, as you see, and then there's this kind of mast, and then a compound winch pulley system. So, okay, that's the basic parameters, and then various pieces of wood to try to keep the thing from bucking and flexing too much. So the arm design is obviously the harder part, or the more custom part. Like, what are my garbage bins here at Madison are not quite the same as hers Wassa, but they're close enough, and garbage trucks are probably interchangeable. But I was like, all right, let's start. Can I interface with the HIMS, because that seems like a high thing, a nice thing. And so I spent some time, in the garage, working on a wood prototype with that. That kind of worked, but it also really wasn't very stable. So that was kind of the first attempt at the arm design. Going to like the side of the bins, I was like, okay, maybe I can take advantage of the big lips that there are, and in the back of my mind, I'm trying to think about how big is this arm going to be? Can I avoid having major torques on the arm, because that just makes it have more mass? And then also, will it give me a long enough lever that way I can actually have a reasonable actuator to lift it up, rather than having to have something more custom or
How heavy are your boxes?
They're about 60, 70 pounds. They're 30 pounds of just, plastic, rotable plastic. So they're, significant at the start, but then when you have trash in them, there we are. So yeah, I spent a little bit of time on this kind of blade concept. I like Menards. I like, I go there and just kind of browse the aisles just because I like to know what's possible. And so I got to exercise that a little bit here. I didn't really like using big, tackles for a rope. And so what I tried to do was, essentially a windlass, which you may have seen it in a well for raising water. But it's 2 different size pulleys. If you have a chain hoist, manual chain hoist, it's the same idea. But that was, pretty cool because you can have pretty large ratios as long as you have a defined stroke on it. It kind of worked, but being 3D printed, I was a little too flippant with the bearings and things like that. So it was okay, but it would have taken a little too much effort to get that to a place that would have worked. So then, okay, let's take a first iteration on a multi-course tackle, a blocking tackle. I had this cool idea for making interlocking 3D printed pulleys, and then I thought, like, okay, instead of having all the runs of the rope be parallel, well, why don't we just wrap them around some core? And yeah, friction, you don't do that. Even when whatever, I super glued the 2 halves of the pulleys together, and I built them up. I put a little bit of lubricant on the 1/4 bolt. Took a while to get all the rope threaded through the different pulleys, and then putting any amount of weight on it. Well, when you're pulling on the rope, there's a lot of movement on the first course. There's half that movement on the second, and a half as you go around the 4 courses. And by the time you got to the other side, there was just so much. There was so little movement. There was so much force on that part that it was pulling the pulleys apart. And PET sheet plastic does have a pretty high coefficient of friction. So there we are. So that was fun because I liked it. I liked how it looked, but it didn't actually work. So there we are. If you go to, this is where I basically ended up going, is that at our hardware stores you can buy these ball bearing rollers for sliding doors. They're generally like $4 for a pack of 2 or something. So you can get there. This is still a pretty large tackle. Yeah.
Well, I love that you make no block tackle. You ever price out what you definitely don't need that. You don't need that.
I do.
You do.
Yeah, the goal was to have about 20 pounds to be the full course. But my original idea was that my mom would position the bins in about the right spot, kind of all right, and then she would just start walking. So there, okay. That's what she was supposed to do. Is she was supposed to start walking away from the vehicle, because I didn't really want her to have to arm over arm or otherwise be pulling on the rope itself. What I really wanted her to do is just to be able to walk away from it and have the things be raised up, because you've got a lot more strength pulling with your legs than you do with arms and fingers. And you see, I'm using a pretty small diameter rope.
No, that would be specified.
Yeah, and Menards will sell like a 2-sided little block. It's like a die cast thing. Those also get kind of expensive, and also they're kind of piddly. So yeah, but even this with the I had 3D printed the little blue things to try to provide guidance to the rope over the different courses, and that also it worked a little bit while I was assembling it, but then when you're actually in the field, it doesn't quite work that well. So cut the corner a little too much there, and it basically worked. I was able to make it here in my garage, but then when I was up there, I had to improvise a little bit more because I found that she was kind of able to walk away from it, but then what do you do? It's still a pretty small rope. Now she's a small diameter rope. Now she's 10 feet away from the truck. So I made this basically a crank, and so the arms, if you're 2 hands on the blue parts, and you go hand over hand, that's also another 4-to-1 kind of advantage, but it's also winding it up. So it takes kind of 2 of the things away from you. You're able to retract the rope, but then you're also winding it up, and you just kind of leave it there with tension holding it all together, and because of the lopsided nature of the crank, it doesn't go anywhere. So that is, I made that, you know, up at her house, and it worked actually. So that was the kind of improvement. And so then, of course, here is the final, you know, thanks for Mom. I've gone back to Madison. I've left her with this. She at least gave me the satisfaction of having used it once. I don't know. There may need to be some more improvements this coming winter. Let's see. But yeah, that was the basic idea there. It kind of worked. So, but yeah, that was obviously, yeah.
So, I always try and like take them out in one trip, and when it's recycling day, everything, because I just walk up to the back of the house to the front of the driveway.
Yeah.
I always try to do it in one trip where, I don't know why those things weren't designed so that you can't like lean them back and then interlock them. And then, I mean, you can push them, but then as soon as that first one gets a little wobbly
Yeah,
out of
it's swirly on
the track, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You know,
Bungee cords?
the way that, you know, the way that the garbage system is, you know, you really don't want to be making modifications to the bins. And I really didn't want to have a lot of complexity for her. I wanted her to just have to do, you know, one or two things. So yeah, you know, other things, I did try to spend some time, you know, just seeing if I could like, you know, lifting it at different points, which is kind of similar to bungees, but yeah, it did what you will.
So you, this is the person who got the box there.
Yeah.
So then she got the other drivers.
Yep, just on the spin it. Yeah, there you are. So yeah, and you know, basically with my dad recovering from the stroke is we don't want to break mom, right? You know, if she goes down, that's into a very different condition for us. So that's part of this motivation here, is to try to give her something, you know, a better tool.
Have you looked at so you got I don't know if there's a towing package in the truck, but you usually got poles in the back. You could look at one of the really, the little linear pole activators.
Yeah.
If the ropes that would be a pain.
Shut your off, man.
Sean back here, I saw his eyes go like, oh, ropes.
I don't know, I mean, I can think of that's a pretty.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I really, I have some experience with linear actuators. I don't have any lying around the house, so that's kind of number one. And then number two is, you know, when it's cold, they can definitely bind, they can definitely do things, and obviously ropes can as well. But yeah, I really didn't want to do electrical things for her. It's having to make an electrical connection as well as, you know, a physical connection. Just
Well, this doesn't that right?
it doesn't. It's not that beautiful piece. It's like 30 pounds. So you know, she's able to pull it in, pull it out, and then set it on the floor. It's not ideal, but it's close.
Have you collected any video of your mom yet explaining what a wonderful son she has to the neighbors that are wondering what the hell she's doing with the garbage can?
Yeah.
Is that gonna be part of the presentation next time, or?
Well, you know, this isn't a product. Not looking for user endorsements yet.
I'll hit the camera and see what our thoughts are happening.
Now, did bribing the neighbor child come into play? Although I see it looks like pretty rural, so not probably a lot of neighbor kids.
Yeah, no neighbor kids.
How long is the driveway?
It's about a quarter mile.
Oh,
And it's not paved yet and all that, so
yeah.
It sounds like she's got a retirement thing.
So if anyone has like an old plow or something that they want to just put that on the front of the truck, and it's got an actuator, and you can see what you're doing then too.
Dual purpose.
Yeah, well, it was kind of either this or let's make her a little like, you know, shed where she can put the dumpsters and leave them out there beside the road sort of, and then, you know, just carry individual bags out, because they don't have that much garbage, but oh well.
Now, does that take care of like when it's turning?
Oh yeah. The bins are totally open for. I think maybe the first picture had that.
Because I would think the easiest way to do it, drop the tailgate, hook some bungee cords up to those, and they're out of the back, leave them at an angle.
they'll let it run the drive.
But then as soon as you
Yeah.
try and like make a sharp turn, we're gonna start skipping.
Yeah, very much. That was part of my brief was to, I wanted the bins to be about a full, wheel diameter off the floor, and they are. So they bounce a little bit, but it's all okay because you've got nice soft materials.
You get some fun looks at the grocery store.
If she, she did.
Or is that strictly the garbage is supposed to be?
Just,
I think the shopping cart was on that. Shopping cart drivable.
Yeah, there you go. So they keep threatening to do a circular economy where you take all of your refuse back to the store that you got it in, and when we get there, we'll be there.
When we get there won't be garbage all of a sudden, because that would really incentivize to stop screwing around and take all the garbage.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Let's see what's good.
I love that. Have you ever seen Apple as the phone recycling video? So they know right where all the chips with all the stuff is. So all they're doing is they're slugging out the parts that are valuable, and then they throw all the rest of it in the shredder.
Yeah.
So there isn't actually any value in there. It's awesome. It's a classic circular economy of recycling at corporate level. It's not all the valuable stuff that you're anywhere else.
Yeah, lots of things should be possible, but it doesn't happen. So yeah, that was that project. The other projects that works.
Any other questions? There you go for everybody. Oh, this project is not from my dad or my mom, so sorry. So this was we went over to Odana Road. There's a building on Odana Road. I don't know, Mark, where is it? I think it's torn down.
It's gone.
It's gone now. I know it's
It's nothing
leveled.
but grass.
It wasn't leveled, so Sean was the connection there. I don't remember where. It's the clock tower offices. Is that right? So it's like right off of the belt line. There's a big clock tower thing, which was all hollow and barely held on, but that was pretty cool. So the clock tower offices had some old stair handrails, and the problem was they were built in the 1970s, and so the handrail holes were like 5 to 6 inches wide. So we were planning on putting like decorative panels on here behind the like 5 or 6 inch spacing to close it down. Code is 4 inches, so we got to get it under 4 inches now. Of course, an inch smaller. Instead, this is a building update, by the way. Instead, Dave Francino had volunteered to help figure out spacing on all the bars and the rungs, and then we got the porta band out and chopped off all of the bars. And then earlier this summer, we re-welded all the bars back on at 4 inch spacing. So these are now positioned upstairs above the piece of wood in the ceiling over there is where the one drop panel is to put the stairs going upstairs. And so this was up there now. The next step is to kind of finish welding in place the panels. We kind of left these in sections that were big enough to be able to move. So this is these 3 panel sections ultimately go around the opening up that way. And then the next step is to weld them in place to assemble the whole thing around. So we have to put a barrier around the opening so you can't fall into the stairwell. And then we'll do some adhesive anchors into the floor. So this is one of the projects. The sucky part is all this stuff is painted, like with like 3 coats of random paints, and some of it peels off and some of it's really stuck on there, and it all smells really bad, so that's why we welded outside. But fortunately, it was a pretty quick weld job once we got all the spacings down. We did have one oopsie where the spacing was on one side of the bar on the bottom and the opposite side of the bar on the top. So that kind of sucked. We had a bunch of rungs going this way. Then we got about 6 in before we realized that it was wrong. Somebody walking by going, "It's not supposed to be square." So it worked out all right. Next thing, which I think, yep, Hero's not over here. We are repainting and refinishing the house across the street. We're watching down everything. So the house is smoked in for like 50 years. It's very, very gnarly. The white on the wall is white because that's what we were able to reach up to and wipe down. This was the world's biggest praying mantis. I've not seen one this big in a very long time. I thought it was awesome. So found that in my picture roll. That totally needs to go in here.
How long ago did you find that?
This was like way earlier fall. So
I found one like 2 years ago in Middle Island. Right on the same rail line.
I was waiting for it to grab onto my finger and not let go. It would have been not good.
I showed it to my landlord. She thought I was kidding. That it was plastic, and then she goes to poke at it, and the thing starts getting. I was like, "That's fucking real."
Yeah, it was big. I mean, it's really, really big. I was amazed. This is the carpet in the house. So it's supposed to be white. We thought it was brown. It is not brown carpet. It is a white carpet. So this was repainting the wall. We've got a big airless sprayer, painting shellac. So this is Euro and I repainting. It's like the magic instant white finish. So I don't know if anybody's ever used an airless sprayer. They're absolutely amazing. You're definitely getting paint particulate in the air, and this is alcohol-based paint, so like got to be not blowing up your house is also very critical. But it is amazing what it'll cover. We've had really good luck. The walls have been washed on with tricyclic phosphate, and then we're spraying shellac, this alcohol-based primer on it, and then rolling latex over top of it. We had a little bit of pinholing where you're getting tar that'll go through the shellac and then out through the primer, since the primer, the latex is then liquefying whatever's underneath it with water. But it worked really well. Like we're doing the whole house and we've had relatively few problems. So this was the upstairs, first floor. Then we did the basement. So this is the before and after. We didn't bother to really do too much for floor protection or site protection because we're basically painting everything. We tried not to paint electrical boxes, not to paint copper pipes, things like that, so service is a little easier. But the inevitability is we're trying to seal in all the smoke everywhere. This is Menards like barn paint. Your options were red or white. Figured white was a little better than the murder room red. And then this is kind of a fun thing. This was an expansion of the house. This was put in like the 1980s. This is the original house, originally from 1931. And right here, they had tarred right at the interface edge between the above grade and below grade. Who knows why? But when we painted it, the oil paint liquefied the tar and drew out all the lightweight in the tar. So these areas turned yellow afterwards. It's a lot of fun.
I was thinking about that. I mean, so this is, you know, more concrete, big thing to do. This is more concrete. See in that picture, everything.
On here, the right.
Well, so that's addition, that's 80s, but the original house is 530s. Where your cursor is, below grade is open. You dug a big hole in the ground, earth on out, that was your grade.
Yep.
But then they formed up the inside of the basement with floors, outside of the top of the basement.
Yep.
So when you go back to your after picture, you see the staining coming through. I'm wondering if that was on the floor they used. You know, because why wouldn't they have, if you were there tarring something, why wouldn't you have tarred the entire horizontal plane? Right? Unless that was in the formboard, because these formboards often get recycled. Probably in the house somewhere else.
I think this was a back door, and I think this was a step. Because it actually carries across the left as well. So I'm pretty sure this was an entry with a stoop. And because the tar line goes left across the cutout, because they cut this as well when they did the addition. So there's tar over here too.
And it goes then that.
Yep, carry, yeah, and the yellow came right through.
So they just tarred that.
Yeah, I don't know why, it's not doing anything, but anyway, so we went through 8 gallons of paint to paint the whole basement. Made a hell of a difference. It is pretty fun just to go with an airless sprayer with a 50-foot hose and go wherever the hell you want, spray everything. And you get pretty good by the time you're done. We tried obviously not to paint the brick, which is the old chimney, not to paint the appliances. It does do a very good job at not overspraying everywhere, as long as you're even halfway cautious. You can see down here at this foot, there's a little bit of overspray on the floor because we were holding in just a tarp up and then shooting it. So find a friend who doesn't mind getting coated with paint. So yeah, basement got painted, and then on the building side, on this side, this is I'm now an HVAC drafter, designer, don't tell the city. So I do have plans for the apartment upstairs. So we're building a caretaker's quarters upstairs. This is supposed to look like actual HVAC permitting plans. I have no idea. We submitted to the city last week. Well, they're going to yell at me and tell me I did something wrong, and that's totally fine. And then I'll fix it and resend it to resubmit it. Jim Witter is kind enough to be our architect, so he took a look at them and said it looks somewhat reasonable. So we'll see what they come up with. But our HVAC contractor, Becky, was told this was new construction, was supposed to pull new construction permits, failed to pull new construction permits. That will still get resolved, but we need plans first for that to work out. So they were supposed to take care of that, and they have not. They mainly do replacements. So Becky did good work otherwise, but not on the new construction side. So long story short, we'll see what the city yells at, and I'll know how to do HVAC plans soon enough. Sean has been graciously trimming outdoors and yelling at me to make oak trim for him. So these are the fire doors for the staircase down on that end of things. We had some fun putting in, this has got, all these jams are kind of variable lengths, because we use 4-inch studs in a lot of places, because we had free 4-inch studs. So they're true 4-inch studs, they're steel studs, and they're actually 4 inches, instead of being 3 5/8 like every stud on there. So as a result, the trim gets weird, because you gotta have these little variable boards all over the place. This is trim in the caretaker's quarters, the apartment upstairs. And then this is what the stair guardrail ended up like. So this is all really old reclaimed lumber. This is from the Kennedy barn. It's kind of over by Monty's Blue Plate. There's an old barn structure there that we had gotten some wood donated from. So we repurposed that. This is some really old, I think it's dug for probably, I don't know, something. And then this pine coming up the stairs is from Scott's land, donated by Scott. That's all. What's that? Oh, these? Those, you know where those came from. Those came from Zion Church right on the corner. We're gonna steal the ceiling out of Zion, maybe, to put the ceiling in between the Berlins, but we'll see. Maybe spring. So long story short, that is the construction update. Anybody got any construction questions? Mr. Matt?
How did shellac fit into this again?
So, good question. So when you're painting a house that's been smoked in forever, your steps are, you take the original house walls like this. So this is as received. This is all been drywall painted, so it had paint on the walls. So we took now a band cleaner. It's called trisodium phosphate. It's got phosphate in it, so it makes the waterways all foam. So you don't really want to use it for anything. You can't buy it, of course, in stores, but you can still order it online. No issues at all. No idea how that works, but at any rate, we didn't ask too many questions. Trisodium phosphate's absolutely insane. We have a clean bucket and a dirty bucket down here. Take the dirty bucket. We're mixing it at who the hell knows what ratio. You pour some in and mix it around, and then you wipe it on the wall with a dirty towel. And it gets wet, and then you wait like 15 seconds, and you wipe it again, and it all just comes right off. So this wall has been like 20 seconds worth of scrubbing, as in you wetted it and you wiped it, and then you take a clean towel and you wipe it again to wipe off all the tar. Otherwise, you're just moving tar around in circles.
That's paint towards the tar that's from the smoke.
This is all the tar from the smoke. Yeah, so we're getting down to the base paint. Some areas have been repainted at one point. The quality of the paint varies, so some of the paint would shed much better than some of the older paint that was more porous. So long story short, the walls go from orange to lighter brownish-ish, beige-ish. Then the next step is this step here, which is, so this is this wash down wall. We wash the ceilings. Then we're taking an airless sprayer and running shellac primer. So shellac primer is like the bins, coats all, great for sealing and tar or smoke or whatever. It's an alcohol-based primer, which I think is crucial to not allowing the oil, the tar, to come through it. Because if I spray oil on, it's going to dissolve the tar, and the tar is going to boil up. And if you put another coat of oil on it, it'll seal it in again. And so like that, the spots downstairs where the tar is coming through is demonstrating why you can't use oil paint as readily. But that said, if you throw enough oil to paint at the problem, I think it pretty much solves it. Because it's mostly washed off when you're talking residual at this point. So like,
a very thin coat on glossy shellac.
that's right. We're using a very thin coat of an alcohol-based primer. It flashes in like 15 minutes. Like you could paint this house and it'll still smell like paint, but it's all dry in like 15 minutes, which is insane. You want to solve and it's kicked out. Because we're talking like 5 gallons sprayed in a couple of hours, and then it's dry right after that.
It's clear you didn't shellac the basement.
We did not shellac the basement because I'm a cheap ass. So shellac is like $300 and some for 5 gallons. That oil-based paint was like $150 for 5 gallons. It's like the shittiest oil-based paint.
I figured you would have just made your own, mixed your own shellac up.
Damn right, I thought about that.
What's that guy's pretty?
Yeah.
Not if you start raising the beetles and harvesting it,
Yeah, you gotta go to India. It's also used for water. So any kind of bleach, also lumber where you have not bleed, like you get lumber, buy furniture from overseas, sometimes it's not done very well, and after a couple of years, you go to see all of that, and that was like.
they use it in a lot of food applications.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, so then this goes on as a primer, and then Sean yells at you and says, "What are you doing? You can't just use a primer." And then you go to a demo site off of Dana Road, and you look at their maintenance building, and they have a whole sea of old paint laying out. And you wait around in there, and you pick up the buckets, and you go for the one that's heaviest, and you assume it's only been frozen a few times. And then you blend it up really good, because of course everything settles at the bottom. You got these really lightweight solids on the top, and you blend the shit out of it for a while, and then you paint it on anyways. And then you hope for the best that it actually kicks off. And it seemed to work fine. What's that?
That was just the garage.
No, I used that stuff in the house. It's off beige. It's good. We still got a couple of gallons left. Then we got another 5 gallons to put downstairs. So we got to roll the base or the first floor. So we're using a power roller to do the next coat, because that way we don't have to worry about as much about overspray. Because the shellac, we really need it to like get a good, consistent, even coat, and we really need it to coat over everything. And then the roller, once the roller goes on, that's like a cosmetic coat. And it's also stain resistance. So we didn't bother painting the ceiling. It's fine. If we ever need to, we can paint the ceiling. We're just trying to seal in the smell. And then latex goes on top to give some durability. We could use anything else, but it's just what we had around. Mr. Aaron?
The final coat's gonna be the farm orange,
Sector orange? That's a mix. It's red and orange.
every wall on the inside.
So in the garage, which is what Sean's giving me hell about, in the garage I went through the whole shop and the house, and I grabbed every color of oil, random oil color that we had, and I mixed them all together and blended them all in a big 5-gallon bucket. In the garage, it's a fade. It goes from a kind of an off purple, because there's some blue and stuff we had going on, to black, to white, to gray. It's like a 6-tone in there. It's good.
Tie-dyed the garage.
Well, yeah, and I did it tastefully. If there was like an architectural border, we sprayed it on the line. It's tasteful. I will say though, the oil paint in the basement, you can see up here. That's a good one. So up here, this is not poor paint quality. I mean, it's definitely poor paint quality on our end, but this is actually where the grain's drawing in. So that big open grain where you don't have tight grain, it sucks in all the paint. Which is why you don't want to use oil paint to paint wood, because it just sucks in all the oil paint and then it leaves you very little pigment. So it really takes 2 coats to coat this if you want it to be white. We don't care. We just need it to be sealed. So.
Why is it all window kind of the doorway? Stairs going.
Which one? This one?
So there's would have been a staircase. Going up.
This, I have no idea what's going on, but this was, I think this was a door. I don't know.
That was
You
great,
go-
and that was
You go do some aerial photography research. You can figure it out. John does construction, so he's on my ass about everything. Anyway, long story short, that's the deal with the shellac, is just to try and seal in whatever's left of the nastiness. Any other boring construction questions? So our sort of arc, I signed a contract this morning about the sprinkler and fire alarm monitoring. So the fire alarm company is supposed to come now and program the alarm for us. We are locked out of the alarm because it's a third-party installer. So they're 2-year contract, and that expires. We'll probably put our own guts in the panel, and then we can program ourselves. But that'll monitor there's some fire detection stuff that's in here for smoke detectors, things like that. And then it's also tied to the flow sensor on the sprinkler system. So if the sprinkler system ever flows, an alarm needs to call out per Wisconsin code. A lot of other states, you don't have to call anybody if your sprinkler goes off. It just floods your building. That's fine. So long story short, that's got to get done. The HVAC permit needs to get approved. It's already installed, and then we need a final inspection on the apartment space upstairs, and that'll be occupiable. Then the next phase is we're going to try to build the elevator framing before it gets super cold outside, which, lately we might have a couple months yet, who knows? So anyway, that's the plan. And then the staircase is the same thing. Brian's got to give us some stringer schematics. We've got all the stair steps here and the material to build the stringer, so he's got to lay them out, put the steps all together, get them all the front staircase. So that's kind of the next phase of psychotic insanity. The other thing I promised entertainment on is not really too much as a presentation, but this thing over here is a hydraulic cutaway system from East High School. So East High is renovating their tech ed area, and as part of that, they're getting rid of some tech ed stuff that they don't use anymore, don't teach anymore. So they're not planning on teaching hydraulics, and as a result, they don't need the hydraulics cutaway fancy models. So there is a real functional hydraulic system down in the car bay that's the same as this thing. So this is a cutaway model that shows how the spool valves work, how the hydraulic gear pump works, how the filter works, how the cylinder, what's inside of a hydraulic cylinder, that kind of stuff. There's some stuff on the table behind Mark. Mark's a very good Van White. There's another couple of hydraulic pumps over there. There's a spool valve. There's a water pump that's cut away. There's also a really old, like 1900s Exide battery cut away. It's a lead acid battery plates and then like a bakelite surround. Sure, it's bakelite. Can't be asbestos. And then exactly, and then it's got a wooden frame because they used to build batteries out of wood back in the day and have a tray inside of them. So the really, really old ones are glass, which is a whole other level of interesting of like, we need a battery, let's build it out of glass, because what could go wrong with some acid and some glass mixed together on a moving, shaking thing. So yeah, those are kind of cool to check out if people get. Anybody got anything else they wanted to share, talk about? We can talk about feelings otherwise. That's always a popular topic. All right.
So
Well,
if we're not teaching hydraulic mechanics, what is that?
they are doing small engines, so they still teach Briggs and Stratton small engines. The kids pull them apart, put them back together again. I don't know if they're graded on whether it starts up and runs or not. They should be. And then they got rid of their outboard engine stuff, and then they still do car work, like car mechanic stuff. So that's what they're teaching the kids to do.
Pretty sure they're just gonna have a class, they just teach them valuable servicemen or something.
Well, it'll be virtual. We'll do virtual reality disassembly, you know, you keep your fingers clean. It is interesting. They have a whole palette of engines. We actually have so I volunteered to help them sell stuff to try and get money for the school. So I have there's a 1968 Montgomery Ward Briggs and Stratton engine down below the staircase down there. It's like a show model. It's not a cutaway or anything. It's just never been used. I'm pretty sure it's just a new engine back in the day. There's a couple of 1940s, 1930s outboard engines. If anybody needs a really tiny boat engine, that's probably maybe works, maybe doesn't work. What else we got? Oh, we got 2 Continental airplane engines.
So you got rid of those?
Haven't, well, yeah, I'm waiting for mechanics in town to get back to me on whether they're interested in them or not. Others are going on eBay. But yeah, they had 2 Continental opposing piston airplane engines, which are pretty cool. I'd say one of them looks pretty good. The other one looks like it's been taken apart a lot of times, so maybe not so good. But you can have a mechanic recertify them for flight. They're old engines, so if you had an airplane or want an airplane, it's not like they're cranking out those engines for cheap. The better one would be not a hover boat. Well, I guess you could put a little hovercraft with them, but the airboat engine would be pretty sweet. So that's the other way to use these is not an airplane, but an airboat. Or on the back of Aaron's car, could be good. Might need to run leaded fuel though. So.
Front of Mark's.
All right. I'm gonna kill off the Zoom here then. So thanks everybody for making it out.